All right. Good evening, everyone. Darren Adair with American Hospitality Consulting. Welcome to our latest Great Minds session, Great Minds session 15. I'm very excited about tonight's show. Just a reminder, we are recording this show. It is May 3rd, 2022. I can't believe it's already May 3rd, guys. This is ridiculous. But I'm very excited about tonight's show because we're going to be talking about something that I've been saying for a while. And, our guest tonight, I've been following him for over a year. The stuff that, great things he was doing during the pandemic, with raising money and helping people, and just finished reading his book, and it's phenomenal. I really, really liked it. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff, but we're very fortunate to have with us tonight Matt Rolfe from let me get this correct here. West Shore Hospitality Group. Matt, he's a coach, he's a speaker, he's a best-selling author, an entrepreneur. He's worked with the top 10% of leadership groups and companies in the hospitality industry. His book, You Can't Do It Alone, which is something I've been saying for a while. Look at that. It's a good product shot there for you, Matt.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about that tonight, some of the stuff from his book and just other stuff around the hospitality industry. So please join me in welcoming Matt. Welcome to Great Mind Sessions, and thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited for this conversation and really excited to connect with you. As I've been following you, I think, longer than you noticed me, all the way up here in Canada on LinkedIn, and just appreciate everything you've done through the pandemic to keep our community talking and keep connected and keep working collectively on solutions that'll help us all move forward, during the pandemic. And now that we're through it, still lots of work to do.
I appreciate that. And now that we're through it, we're hoping we're through it.
Yeah, hoping. Yeah, I say that gingerly.
We thought we were there last summer, and then bam.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know what, Matt, I've kind of shared a little bit about you, but why don't you tell us a little bit, how did you get in hospitality? What is it that's kept you in this business and really keeps you driven to continue to work with this business?
Yeah, I'll try to give the short introduction. So I kind of found hospitality. I wouldn't say by mistake, but in public school and in grade school, I was diagnosed with a learning disability and was put in learning strategies classes. And going into high school, I remember having a meeting with a guidance counselor who said, Matt, we don't think you're going to graduate high school, so you should look for alternative employment. And I really took that to heart. And that really meant go work in trade work. So what I was able to do then is find hospitality, and I found entry-level jobs. And although I wasn't doing well in school by grade definition, I found a community and employers that were willing to invest in me, that were willing to believe in me. Although at that stage, I probably didn't really believe in myself, and stayed in hospitality, worked in campus pubs in college, and then had the opportunity to work for Bacardi as a summer rep, and then as a territory manager, and coming out of college, work for Labatt. So I had a chance to work across Ontario in districts and territories, worked with hundreds of operators. And what I found is a lot of them were selling a lot of my product, but when I met with them in their back office, they weren't profitable. They were, often back then they had a cigarette in their mouth and a drink in one hand. I had some really fun territory, some great friends, clients that are still friends today. And it didn't make sense to me. So I ended up leaving the spirits and beer business. And we brought a company to Canada that helped find profitability in restaurants. And after about 5 years, what I realized is I wasn't coaching profitability, I was coaching behavior change. So how do we get people focused on the right things to get the results they deserve? And, it's just this, I've spent my entire life in hospitality. I've spent the last 17 years now as an entrepreneur, doing all I can to help operators. And it's the industry I love, and it's the industry I know. And I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere.
Awesome. Yeah. I like, I think we talked about this yesterday. I like to say it's part of my DNA. If you're not in this business and you haven't worked in it for as long as we have, you don't truly understand it, but it gets under your skin and becomes a part of who you are, which is, and we love it. That's why we're doing it. So I wanted to start out, before we get into the book, I wanted to ask you a question, because you talked about COVID and the pandemic and the things that we've been having to deal with. There's been a lot of lessons that have come out of the last couple of years, right? So what, and you talk about some of them in your book, what are some of the lessons that you think were some of the biggest lessons that we've learned in the last couple of years? And what lessons do you think we still need to learn?
Yeah, that's a big question and a great one. And we really, I wouldn't want to be said we fell on the title of the book. Like I wasn't my intention to write a book or to write a book to sell copies of books. It was a period in time where we felt that we could get more content to a bigger audience. And the title of the book was you can't do it alone. The one thing I realized through the pandemic, just before the pandemic, our family made the move to Calgary. So I left both my offices here in Toronto and made the move to Calgary and found myself alone physically.
Right.
Couldn't travel. I'm somebody who's in a boardroom, 5 days a week with different operators or with my team, and just found myself in an alone position. The only way for me to help my companies and my team to help me and us to work with our staff was to do it together. And I think the one thing that we've learned is the power of collective, the power of tribe, the power of just we're meant and designed as humans to work with more than just ourselves. So I think that's one thing that I learned. And then also what we're able to accomplish, like what operators did, what leaders did, managers did, owners did, frontline staff did to navigate this pandemic across the globe, but in North America is absolutely remarkable. Right. So to show our resilience and our ability to fight and our grind are two things that I think we want to take with us. We want to keep team and community, and we want to keep that grit. Our industry has always been gritty through the financial crisis and non-smoking and prohibition, if we want to go back that far.
Right.
But I think the lessons that we still need to learn, not to jump too quickly, is this fight's not over. Like you said, like we might be through stages of the pandemic, but we still need to stay gritty, stay scrappy, stay intentional. When we're intentional with the results we want for our business, with the pricing we have on our menu, with the attracting and retaining of our staff, we can produce great results, but nothing happens without very, very focused intention. And that's one thing that I hope for us is to be selfish for our industry. So to keep people here, to strive for the results we deserve, not only average. Average in hospitality, as we know, leads to bankruptcy. Yeah. That's why 80% of operators go bankrupt in 5 years. And there's different stats there, but the results are pretty tight. So average sucks. We need to stay intentional and focused on what we can create. And we went back during the pandemic and looked through different challenging times. And there's been nothing like the pandemic, but when we've gone through challenging times as an industry in the past, we see these great entrepreneurial, these independent restaurants start up in these times or start to thrive, or these multi-site groups emerge in every major city in North America. People will win through this. I know I don't want anybody to lose, but people that stay focused will win, and we will see growth and a bunch of new and exciting change in our industry, this year and beyond.
Definitely. No, that's awesome. Thank you for that. And you touched on a few things I know that you'd also gone into in the book, but there was a few things that really drew me to it. And I'm glad that I was able to get a copy and I was able to read it. But, when you talked about saying you can't do it alone, when you moved to Calgary and that feeling, I think that was a feeling a lot of the independent operators in our business felt, but they didn't think there was an alternative. Yeah, they thought they had to do it alone, right? And I know we've talked about this before, but that's one of the reasons why I started Great Mind Sessions, because I wanted people to be able to know we're a hospitality community. You don't have to try and do everything by yourself. There's people out there who can help you out. So that really spoke to me, when I saw the name of the book. And then you talked a bit about, basically we talked about playing to win, and we talked a bit about that too. And the playing to win versus playing not to lose. If you really think about it, it's a really important statement, because if you're playing not to lose, you're doing what you were talking about. You can't be mediocre. You can't be middle of the road. That you're going to fail. Playing for mediocrity is not going to get you. You have to play to win. But if you do play to win, you got to be comfortable with the fact that you're probably going to fail a few times. You're going to make mistakes. It's all part of the process. So, those were two of the things that really spoke to me from the book. And, maybe if you want to talk a little bit more about that, the playing to win versus playing not to lose, and what it really means to you, and, why you felt it was important to put it in the book.
Yeah, I as a coach, I also have a coach, and I would travel. My coach happened to be in Calgary. I didn't live there at the time. He'd make me travel from Toronto once a quarter, 3 days, locked in a room, strategizing about the business, all the opportunities. But it was really hard sessions. Like, he was very aggressive on me, and he should have been. It's what I asked for, and he was an incredible coach. But he said to me one day at the end of a session, and he said, Matt, and this is, I just remember feeling, when you get that feeling, being so frustrated, so irritated, but he looked at me and said, Matt, I know you're doing a lot of stuff and things, but I really think you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And I looked at him and I could feel it in my body still, this frustration. But when I felt what I coach my clients is where you feel resistance, there's usually something there. So if a speaker says something or read something in a book or read something on LinkedIn and I resist it, I stop and pay attention to it based on the work I did with this coach. And the reality was I wasn't playing to win. I was busy doing too much, diluting my focus because it made me feel busy and made me feel that I was accomplishing things, but I wasn't moving forward with that word I used earlier with intention.
Right.
I think now when we look to restaurants is the first thing that we, often in coaching restaurants, and it's a great question for anybody listening is, does your team know how you win this year? I'll say this jokingly, the Stanley Cup playoffs just started. The Leafs are going to win the cup this year for anybody out there listening. Just want to put it out there, claim that space. But the Leafs know exactly how they win. The Raptors, and whatever city you're in, the sports team knows exactly how you win.
Not my Jets in Winnipeg.
Sorry, not the Jet. Well, hey, they're trying, but hey, at least you got the Flames and you got the Battle of Alberta going. But I think as we look at playing to win, when I ask operators, what's the exact definition of winning that's not profitability or sales? So what's the result that your team could celebrate and high five or stop long enough to just take a moment to realize their great progress? And I work with a lot of multi-site, incredible brands that have difficulty answering that question. And that's where we spend some time. And I found before we go running on tactics or goals or processes or projects, if it's not leading in the direction of a clear definition of winning, that we have a chance of getting to the end of the year as leaders, by the time we get to the end of the year, we're usually on to the next goal. So we don't celebrate. And that might be okay for us, but I can tell you what our people need right now are some wins and some celebrations. So playing to win just means absolute clarity on what success looks like. And that's where your time and your focus is, as much as possible, 20 to 30% of your week should be focused on when you can.
Perfect.
I know there's a lot there. We do full days on that topic.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
But that's great. No, and just a reminder for everybody who's on the call tonight, if you do have questions or anything you want to share, just put something in the chat and I will call you in to share your thoughts. We really want to get some of your thoughts and ideas because these are big topics. We're talking about, again, potentially coming out of the pandemic and really being ready to address what's going to be happening, looking forward and being prepared for all that. I wanted to jump into something that you were talking a bit about, and it goes into the one about the vulnerability when you're talking about, vulnerability leadership, versus being perfection. And I think a lot of us who have been around for a while have to really consciously think about that. Yeah. Because when we first started, it was, you had to be perfect. There was no other option. Yeah. Right. And so it's a reminder. So, how did that come about and what have you seen? What stories can you share and thoughts on why vulnerability leadership is so important and the impact that it can have in an organization? Yeah, well,
when we step back to do the course in the book, I looked at that. What was the big transition in independent operators or multi-site operators when I saw them go from the team, working hard to get results to working at flow? And the big difference for me that I saw that changed things when people led with vulnerability. And when they stopped trying to be perfect, they stopped trying to have all the answers. And I'll share my vulnerability. For the first 5 years as a coach, I had a fancy suit on and fancy shoes and was trying to be my mentor. And it wasn't me. It wasn't authentic. I wasn't vulnerable. I wasn't real. I could do great work, but I was creating disconnection, not connection with my clients, with my team, with myself, because I wasn't vulnerable. But what I realized when people started to share that we don't have to have all the answers, that as you shared earlier, collectively as a community, we can come to a decision together. We can share together, we can connect. When we can start to talk about something like mental health, like I shot a video for LinkedIn this morning. I'm somebody who struggles with anxiety and depression since I was a young kid. I've hid that my entire career. I shot a video this morning. I woke up this morning with crippling anxiety. Like it was like a wave of pressure. Right. And before I'd want to hide that, but today instead I shot a video. Like I have a routine, I have a process. I went to the gym. The gym's supposed to make you feel good. I hated it. It sucked. It didn't make me feel any better at the end of it. I walked out going, that was terrible. And I usually like it, but I have a routine and just the vulnerability side of saying, I am someone who struggles with anxiety and that's okay. And my anxiety doesn't define me. That's part of my vulnerability journey. And also I'm thinking right now of one of the clients I work with has 150 quick service locations. And I'm thinking of him going to his team and through the pandemic saying, hey, how do we work through this together? Not, I just can't give you the answers anymore because it's too much. But to see the weight that came off of his shoulders and so many other leaders when we had the ability and the opportunity to stop trying to be perfect, because nobody is.
Right.
And based on what we've all gone through at home with our families, with their kids, with their dogs, with their pets, with their jobs, I think when we reconnect in the workplace, Brene Brown's calling it the great awkward. If we try to have all the answers, what people really want right now is, it's not a perfect world. It's incredibly challenging. We're going to do our best. As you said, we're going to fail forward. We're going to find a way. But I think from my side as a coach, if I can't get somebody to a vulnerable position where we can be truthful and honest, then I know I'm not the right coach for everybody. I know I'm the wrong coach, because if we can't start with a foundation of vulnerability, I don't believe we can build the trust that's needed to move a team forward.
Perfect. Anton, you've got your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little two cents of mine. Something that Matt talked about at the beginning reminded me of way back in the day when I used to work in a restaurant, manage the restaurant. One of the concepts we were exploring back then already is that good service is not good enough anymore. And that's, I think, and that was many, many years ago. But at the same time, and I'm always trying to reconcile two concepts of my own, is that, you always want to be perfect, but do you want to be perfect sometimes and then drop the ball, or do you want to be more on the consistency side without pushing yourself too hard? And how do you kind of put that, good service, good food, but turn it into a little bit more of an awesome experience, but with more of a consistency, knowing that sometimes you will not be able to deliver that awesome 110% of the time. That's the one thought that I always not necessarily struggle with, but always gives me a little time to think.
Yeah. And Darren, I don't know if you want me to dive right into that, because I love the question. And a lot of what we initially work with our clients on is, what is our service strategy? So really a lot of what we're breaking down, we've worked with big national chains with 12 or 15 service steps, which might work for them. But for the average operator, it's usually 3 core service steps. And what I work on with my clients is, what can we do consistently and relentlessly? And often we talk about kind of, rather than the middle, the top 20% of experiences and the bottom 20%. And I think what I'm looking to do, and I live in Toronto, which is the 4th biggest city in North America, Toronto, Canada. And when I go into workshops, I ask people, I was in a workshop last week and I said, what's the last great experience you had in the city of Toronto? We have over 6,500 restaurants in the GTA surrounding area. That goes all concepts, and nobody can put their hand up. So it's such a great opportunity, not just to wow people for those those birthdays or those anniversaries or that work event, but how do we move the middle? And I think it's getting our teams bought into, are there 3 steps, maybe the beginning, the middle, and the end of the guest experience, that we can do relentlessly, knowing we can't be perfect. It's hospitality. Challenges are going to happen on the food side. Challenges are going to happen on the service side. Guests right now, and I say this respectfully, some cases have unrealistic expectations that are over and above what our base service standard is, and that's okay. But how do we get this really clear on who we are? And to slow it down a bit, is coming out of the pandemic, what does your guest want and need right now from you? We look at inflation, and one thing we can see as all leaders on this call, that there is a big risk that people will go out less. So they will still go out, but based on inflation going up, and we're seeing menu prices up 20+% here in a lot of areas of Canada, major markets. So people go out less. What do they want and need from you to exchange, money for experience? It's not money for food and drink. It's money for an experience. And whether you're a quick service operator, or you're an independent, or you're a multi-site that's expanding and growing, I think it's, how do you be consistently, and how do you relentlessly focus on that, but celebrate like crazy when you do see progress towards your goals, rather than reprimand the small mistakes that people make, because most of your restaurants are doing remarkable and great things. Most of your teams and stuff.
Yeah, and I like that point because just as humans, we seem to struggle in celebrating the good things and focus on the negatives. And one of the teams I'm working with, the teams at America's Best Restaurant, you were on Matt Rolfe's show a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and we end each day with our hurrahs for the day.
Yep.
Right. So just getting an opportunity for the team to celebrate together, the good things that are going on, focusing a lot on no negativity, and it's just simple things like that, where you can hear the good things that are going on. It reminds you that to focus on that kind of thing, because, and I get it, it can be hard sometimes because we've all had those days. I mean, I've had the days where I love the double freezer, the fridge freezer combo. So you could walk through the fridge into the freezer with both doors closed and scream and swear at the top of your lungs so nobody could hear you. And then you'd walk back out with a smile on your face and, you're back into it. We've all had those days, but being able to try and focus on the positive and really celebrate that stuff is going to make it a little bit easier.
And what about so one thing I did during the pandemic, because we had the time, is I like to read a lot. I didn't read a book till I was 25, and somebody handed me a copy of Think and Grow Rich, and I'd learned to read and educate myself. But I studied habit change during the pandemic, and there's a bunch of Tiny Habits and Atomic Habits and all these books, but they have the same foundation no matter who the author. The only way as human beings for us to change our habits or patterns is by recognizing positive progress and towards the new goal. So rather than I want to lose 10 pounds, so it's recognizing losing quarter pound, half pound, or a pound, or I want to have a different service strategy. So we want to recognize, reward, celebrate when somebody provides good service. The days of saying, hey, we did it wrong. Our brains are not designed by these 5 habit change experts to change habits based on focusing on what we didn't do. So if we want to shift our minds, our teams, ourselves, our teams, our service strategy, whichever it is, our inventory results, we have to recognize progress in the direction of our goals in its simplest form. And you're right, our industry isn't designed to do that. But what's the benefit if we started to focus on positive recognition? And what's the risk if we don't? There has to be a gravity question. So gravity pulls us to a new direction or what we know. And if we can, looking at somebody like Matt Rolfe, if anybody on this call is not following Matt, success leaves clues. Having a daily recap, having a morning huddle, he told me about his morning huddle with his sales teams, his routine that he's up at 4:30 in the morning. It's not Matt's routine. It's Grant Cardone's routine. It's Brad Lee's routine. It's Tony Robbins. Success leaves clues. And if we just follow these great leaders, and Matt being one of them, we can find a routine that works for us that focuses on the positive. But great leaders are focused on what's working. I would assume most people on this call, I practice appreciative inquiry. I go into businesses to double down on what's working, and we tweak the opportunity. Most people on a call like this just need to focus on the tweaks of the opportunity. So how do we do more of what's already working rather than fixing broken in most cases?
Right. Awesome. You started talking about something, and one of the other chapters I liked in the book was the finding your tribe.
Yeah.
And, talking about having a same vision and a rally cry versus a mission statement in that, can you just talk a little bit about the importance of finding a tribe and what that means?
And I'll back up a bit just because you shared this earlier about keeping, and this is what you've done through these sessions and your outreach and your LinkedIn and all your social, is making sure that our industry has a community. So if we look at every other industry, small business, senior, your C-level positions, insurance, mortgage, all of these other industries have peer communities. Hospitality is one of the only industries that does not have a peer community where you could show up, not share your secret sauce, but show up and be real and have a peer community to have a discussion and really focus on community. And what we're looking to do and what we're rolling out here shortly is that tribe environment. So how do we have a collective of leaders like this here that we can bring together, because our industry needs community, I think, more than anything. And what I'm looking at for when it comes to tribe at a restaurant, if anybody's seen Simon Sinek's Start With Why TED Talk, I think it's got, I don't know how many, 80 million or 90 million views. Simon talks about people buy into or believe what you believe. They don't buy into what you want to accomplish. And what I'm working on with a lot of the teams is in a labor shortage that we're going through right now, when we're fighting to attract talent and retain talent, do you stand for something? Have you communicated what it means to work with you? Have you communicated what your results and goals are so you can find your tribe? Because right now, not everyone's meant for your restaurant. We want to find people who believe in our service strategy, as Anton said. We want to find people who believe in our food quality, and we want to find people who believe in our core values. We're just in a new office here. It's a strange setup here tonight. So we're putting core values on the wall. It's easy to have core values, but do you live them, and do people give a shit about them? Excuse my language.
You're good.
So I think the key thing here is how do we find our tribe? And there'll always be people transiently working through our industry. That's okay. But if we want to move a business forward, again, you can't do it on your own. We need to find a tribe who believes in what we're looking to accomplish.
Definitely. Al, I see your hand up. Why don't you unmute yourself and ask?
Hey guys, I agree with you, Matt. We have a very strong situation with staff, but I believe personally staff is need to be collected. We cannot create those people. People need to come to the work, leave their luggage outside, and can come in and have the desire to work. Because when they leave you for a half a dollar or a dollar across on the just opposite across the street, that means those people are not gonna go further enough with you. And I'm based in Miami. Yes, things for us are been always good. We didn't have a struggle with COVID, but again, yes, we hit out with everything else, with the liquor shortage, with the material shortage, with staff shortage. People doesn't want to go to work because they get used to it. Some business owner and some entrepreneurship did the same. They don't want to move out from their comfort zone. And now we're facing a different situation. Sorry, I'm in the soccer field.
Those of us up north are looking at the skies and the palm trees, and we're all jealous right now. So it's all good.
Killing me with those palm trees, but I like it.
I'm sorry, guys, but I choose Miami, and here I am, love-hate relationship. But today's a struggle. What we're facing is customer. People are coming, harassing the employees, harassing the managers, and complaining about something they know about it, and they just make it up. And at the end of the day, they don't want to pay. This is another struggle that, yes, everybody has struggling with labor, with shortage of material, with everything, and with some government related situation. But today we're facing in Miami general, because we have way too much. And this week we're gonna have the Grand Prix, the Formula One. People are complaining for nothing on their servers. Just wanna complain to get a free tacos or free sushi roll or free burger or free drink, because there's nothing on it. And that's the new trend we're facing on. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Al. And you know what? Some of that I think goes a little bit back. Matt, you touched on this earlier. I know I did a session a few months ago with Trina Rialkoff, where we talked about better understanding. We don't know the full impact of COVID, as far as, and stuff, Al, you're talking about, the impact to our brains, right? I mean, we have been locked away, and you didn't have it as much in Miami, but in a lot of the other areas where people, it's still kind of resonated down there. So you've had to pull yourself out of society, and now it's almost like some of us have forgotten how to act in society, in public. But it's also, I think some of it is the impact, the emotional impact, the impact on our mental health is more than we truly understand at this point. And I think from our team members' perspective and from our guest perspective, we haven't really truly understood what that is going to be like. And I know there's ways to deal with, there's programs and different things that you can do to assist with that. But I just think we have to open our minds to it, that there's some things there that we need to be open to and available for to make different steps forward, because it's just, things have changed. And if we're not open and understand that, I think it's opened our eyes a little bit to be more understanding that these things exist, but I don't know that we all know how to properly deal with them and what steps to take to make sure they're properly dealt with and handled.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's, on my own personal track, I'm still working with a few different therapists, right? To learn. One thing I did last year was I got a chance to work with a set of master therapists to understand the impact on burnt out of the pandemic on burnt out executives. So that was a very, and not like the actual therapeutic side behind it and the roots of it. So you're right. There's a lot for us to unpack there. And there's, looking at a market like Miami, we have a bunch of clients who have venues in Miami, right? People like to go into Miami and play, and they usually lose, but It's a very challenging labor market with a very high guest expectation. If we had more time, and I'd be happy to offer it after, but great salespeople anticipate great objections. So if we have a pattern of objection from our guests coming in to complain at a later date, and we don't have time to unpack this fully, what I would do is figure out how do we get our staff ahead of these, if they are true patterns. If they're one-offs, we just have to eat them and move on. If they're not going to eat the food, we can, and we'll eat the cost. But we want to anticipate the objections that we have, or objections that our guests have, or wants. So I said, what does your guest want and need now? And how do we, there's a term called pre-frame in our initial interaction at the table, pre-frame that expectation to our guests. So it is Formula One in Miami. If I heard that's this weekend, that's incredible. Like, for anybody who gets a chance to check it out. But we are going to have longer wait times. This is the reality of our environment. Our host stands, our first interactions with our guests. How are we anticipating these guest objections so people can choose to move on or to work with us as they try to navigate? Like, I can't imagine Formula One post-pandemic and a labor shortage and a supply shortage. But yeah, there's a lot there. We don't know the impact of this. And in certain markets, people are still, venturing out there. And as you said, and trying to find their way into restaurants for the first time. So we have to see what that looks like, especially in any major tourist market. You're going to have waves. One of your guest avatar might be a tourist, and you might have to figure out how do you want to manage or serve or provide a great experience to that transient or tourist guest, because their needs will be very different than, for example, Miami local or even Eastern Seaboard.
Right. Good point. Dwayne, if you want to unmute yourself and join in.
Yeah, my thought is this. We talk about problems and challenges and complaints. We need to look at those as opportunities. The pandemic's going to be over. It's getting over. So now we look at things. What are the opportunities out there that we can do some things? One of the things I've noticed, for instance, a lot of the restaurants have adapted and changed things in how they do business and how they work with things. So you got to look at it as opportunities, and what new things can we learn from what just happened that we can do to grow our business? When you do that, guess what? Everything's a home run derby. I mean, I've been through many challenges in my 75 years and 50 years in business, and you got to adapt. And the number one thing in the whole world that happens is change. And so the successful business people, they know they're going to have problems. That's expected. What the problems turn into opportunities to make more money and do more things and create more advantage. That's all I got.
Perfect. Thank you, Dwayne. And just so everybody knows, Dwayne is actually my coach. So awesome. Very glad to have him here.
Mine too.
Perfect. Anton, I'm not sure if you wanted to come in and share your point, or if you just want me to share that, but Anton put in the chat, almost like we want to train the customer on what to expect in a way. Anton, if you want to, elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I was just flipping burgers on a barbecue there.
Good.
Within an earshot. Yeah, it's just, again, something that we used to explore back in the day in a restaurant is that, again, set the expectation for the customer, and like I said, almost train them to know that, if you come to this restaurant, you're going to get seated in 5 minutes, you're going to get your drinks in 15. So again, that lost the word there, that consistency, right, in a sense, and try to keep to that consistency as best as you can.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know why, but for some reason I got the Seinfeld "no soup for you" in my head there when you're talking about training customers. Not exactly what you're talking about, I know, but for some reason it popped into my head. But we're all having to relearn, because in a lot of areas it's been a long time since we've been able to do any of this stuff. I mean, we've been on again, off again here in the US, and I know it's been a lot different than what's been going on back in Canada. So we're at different levels of things, and things were handled differently, but there is a lot of relearning on everybody's part of what this new world looks like and how we have to work within it.
What a beautiful question, right? Who sets your guest expectation? So for some reason, and we had a call today with the Ritz-Carlton. So the other company I have does cost control and mystery shop work. And the Ritz-Carlton, we've got a bunch of mystery shops, like upcoming properties. So very grateful, like one of the best brands on the planet. But who sets the guest expectation at the Ritz-Carlton? The Ritz-Carlton does, right?
Right.
Well, they're gonna ask you for $785 for the room here in Toronto for the night for an average standard room, but they're gonna set that valet experience, the guest check-in. We're gonna have the experience going through the different outlets or restaurants. But I think the one thing for us is, yes, we want to be flexible to our guest needs. And I know, again, these are big conversations, but when it comes to that relentless consistency, it's our opportunity, as Dwayne said, like, how do we get clear as to what do we learn through the pandemic? What do we need to do? I know as a coach, my world fundamentally changed. What my core clients, even returning clients that have been with me since I started the company, as clients, their needs are different now. And I had to look at how do I address them. But again, to Dwayne's point, what an opportunity. People are looking, oh, people's needs have changed. What do I do? Or how have our guest needs changed? And how do we deliver an experience consistently, relentlessly, that draws them back to us more frequently than our competitors? And it's just that framing of the question can create some exciting opportunity. I'm not trying to be cheesy. There's great opportunity out there for you if we look at the question the right way.
100%. One of the things, as you were talking, I started thinking of, and you talk about this in the book as well, is we've got a lot of people coming into this business who maybe haven't worked in hospitality before, and communication, training, setting them up to succeed, to make sure that they know what they're supposed to do. Are we doing that properly? Because I know in a lot of cases, especially when you're short staffed, it's, I got a warm body, I need them on the floor, or you worked in this restaurant, you know how to be a server, so you can go be a server at my restaurant. And we're not really setting them up for success. So you talked about communication, but you also talk about a reset on some of the poor performers. And when you're looking at turnover and that kind of thing, we got to take a little bit of an internal look at ourselves, right? To make sure that we haven't set them up to fail.
Yeah. I think there's, so if we look at the training and retention tool, so we've hired somebody now, we need to train them and onboard them and retain them. Often what I ask, especially through the pandemic, is how many ideal training shifts do you have? And I'll often hear 3 training shifts, 5 training shifts, 7 training shifts. And when I get to know somebody, I say, great, last summer, how much training time was the average new hire getting? And I would say in most cases, it would be half a day or a day.
Right.
And I get a chance to work with high volume restaurants. So we take an untrained person, put them in a high volume environment that's short staffed. And what they're saying is, I don't feel supported. I don't trust the business, and I don't need to do this. There's a labor shortage. So by not training, we create this incredible wave of continuous turnover. So I think the first thing is just really, especially as we're heading into this peak spring, summer season for a lot of us, is what is the ideal or the must do training time? Because what it'll do is make sure that we reset and support our existing staff, give them the tools they need to do the job right. But what it also does is it allows us to make sure we have a standard in place. So because if we don't train, my biggest concern right now isn't the hourly shortage going into the summer months. My concern is the second wave of turnover that comes when we don't properly train and support our people.
Yeah.
So that's one side. That's the hourly side. The other thing is, and I am not in any way, shape, or form, I'm always supporting the people. I'm not a headcount coach. I'm not looking to replace or change. I'm a coach, not a consultant. I'm not coming in with the answers. I'm coming in with the hard questions. The one exercise that a lot of people, what I ask them is, are you holding on to somebody that no longer fits your culture? So is there somebody on your team that they're a great person, you care about them, you might love them, they've been with you that long, but they no longer fit your vision and your culture? And what's happening in a lot of cases is people are holding on to those team members. The team members frustrated, ready to move on. The business is frustrated, but all the other staff and leaders are watching us hold on to these people.
Right.
So I think now it's time to make some hard decisions if we do want to create that consistent, to Anton's point, the consistent experience. And I know it's hard, but we do an exercise called lift, leave, surrender. So and this is something we do monthly or quarterly. So who on your team has the opportunity for this month or this quarter where we can lift them, meaning we can invest time and energy into them where they'll grow in their roles. So they'll have the chance to be promoted or grow their skill set so they could be considered for promotion. Who right now do we know has to leave? Not that they're going to, this is a backstage conversation. But
Right.
so this means, meaning for the next month or 90 days, we're going to overinvest in them to try to recover them from having to leave. And if they get to a point where they have to leave, then that's the decision. That's the Jack Welch theory. If anybody remembers Jack Welch, the GE CEO, top CEO of the last century, was told that he was neutron Jack. When I had a chance to meet Jack, he said that wasn't the case. Everybody who worked for me knew exactly where they stood. So if somebody's at risk of leaving, and if you want to look at it, and great stuff on YouTube, Jack Welch is still one of my favorite leaders, authors, but do your people know exactly where they stand? And then the third part of the triangle of the exercise is, who do we surrender to? Who on our team right now is just doing great at what they're doing, where we just let them continue to grow and thrive? Maybe they don't want to be promoted. Maybe they don't want a job change. Maybe they don't want more hours. Who can we surrender? Surrender is not a point of weakness. It's a word of strength. Surrender, just to let them be who they are and be great in your role. We all need rocks. We don't superstars we need to join our team, but we need these rocks and the foundational elements of our restaurants more than anything. And sometimes we're trying to put people in positions where for this month or this quarter, they're just good where they are. So that lift, leave, surrender exercise, we've got a one-pager for it. If anybody wants it, we can send it out afterwards. A simple exercise, but one of the most powerful ones that we do, not just to do the exercise, but to make sure everybody on your leadership team is aligned with where all your managers sit on that list. And again, our job as leaders is to support our people, is not to say you did or didn't do, so let's let them go or let's replace them. Our job as leaders is to support, develop, and train our people so they can do great in their roles. It's to be at service of our team, not the other way around, is my belief.
I love that. Dwayne, if you get your hand up, and then Anton, I'll go to you next.
One other thing is you didn't mention, and I tell my clients all the time, and that is, if you're having trouble getting people to work, most of my clients aren't for one reason. I'm coaching them to create an excitement that there to create a fun environment. If you create a fun environment, people will come to you. When I had my other businesses that I owned, I never had problems getting employees, but the one thing we did was we made it fun to be there, exciting. We created a lot of teamwork. People couldn't wait to work for us because they really thought it was a lot of fun. It would be a great thing. And if you do that and you create that excitement and environment, word gets around fast. And next thing you know, you got people working for you. Every single one of my clients I coach right now, they don't have problems getting employees because we created the excitement and enthusiasm, and the enthusiasm is contagious and talk about it.
I really hope people hear that, right? This is where people get really pissed at me in workshops. My clients, especially managers and leaders, do not have a shortage right now. And I say this intentionally. I said, when you feel resistance, pay attention to it. In every major city across North America, there are leaders, managers, and staff. They're just not working in your restaurant if you're short. And I say that respectfully. We just have to change the energy, change the culture, change it consistently, make it exciting, make it somewhere desirable to work. I couldn't agree more, but that is an opportunity in the market. And I'm lucky right now, I was with a great group I've worked with this year. They have full management grids going into the summer for the first time in 5 years. Full management grids. We're supposedly in this labor shortage, especially management shortage. And they've actually got depth charts. Like we talk about what's our bench, our depth chart, like the Dallas Cowboys. It's possible, but you just have to make sure that you're providing an experience. It's not a one-off. We can't do one training, one conversation, consistently exciting to work for. I couldn't agree more with Dwayne.
Awesome. Anton?
Yes, every time we talk about training, be it back in the day or now a couple of volunteer organizations I'm in, but a very cheesy Boston Pizza training video comes to mind. And there were a couple managers and one says, I don't want to train this person. What if I train him and he leaves? And then the other guy's like, well, what if you don't train them and then they stay? I think that's another food for thought here too.
Yeah, definitely 100%. And go ahead, Matt.
I think it's one of the best things that we've had for years, right? So people right now looking at, what is your training budget? What is, to Dwayne's point, what is your fun budget? What is your exciting budget? So we can't possibly have them. We're coming out of COVID, and say, what if we just leave them? What if we hire the best server for your patio, but the best server in your city doesn't fit your culture? And they're just there ripping tips off people's bills for the whole summer. They walk out with full pockets, and you don't have returning guests for the critical fall and winter months. So I think now it's looking at, how do we make the right investment in our people? And also, where do you make that investment? A lot of times we're talking about hourly staff, but do you have a train the train? Are you investing in your core managers, the ones that are face-to-face with your guest and your staff all day, every day? So often what I see is staff get trained and senior leaders get trained, but we have to talk about how do we support the core? And that's a concept of the book, support the core of a restaurant management team. So do we develop future leaders, but we provide them the support to consistently coach the staff on a daily basis. So I know it's a hard one. I know everyone's tight on budget, but I would hate to see people, I always talk about this, have people on your team quit and stayed, and what's the impact?
Yeah, no, definitely. Al, I see that you got your hand up.
Yeah, for sure. So I find this really intriguing. I only hire to my culture. So we outline our values. We're transparent with our values as an organization. The only questions we ask when we are going through our hiring process are questions that help us understand whether the potential team member is aligned with our values. And it creates a really neat dynamic because everyone on the team knows that as soon as this person walks in, that they are aligned from a work ethic, they are aligned from a kindness perspective, from a solutions focused perspective. So the where I keep getting stuck right now, I guess, is there is kind of a crunch as we're ramping up, and people are, what I've learned, I guess, mostly out of this pandemic is that people don't want one job, they want multiple jobs. So especially entry level, they don't want one job, they want like 2 or 3, and maybe that provides them some sense of security, but it totally tends to hoot me and my teams. The people that are, so they come in with wide open availability, then they're shrinking it rather fast. And I guess I struggle in the conversation of, well, because the culture is be kind, be empathetic, be understanding. So I struggle in going, fuck, hey, you signed up and you said this is where we were at. And now 3 weeks later, you're going, shit, I just accepted another job as well. So I'd appreciate your thoughts maybe on how to navigate those times.
Yeah. Really valuable insight for everybody on the call. So what I heard in that is that there's so we often talk about guest avatars. I'll just try to frame this a bit. So who are kind of 3 core guests? So maybe we have the tourist, the business lunch, and the family, just for examples. But one thing we're working on, because it has shifted, is who are your employee avatars? So your core employees, because we need to know is who are we looking to hire and what do they want and need? And the great thing that Al's identified there is one of his employee avatars has changed. So pre-pandemic, somebody would come in and want 30 hours. We'd say we've got 32. They'd say, great. They'd get 26, 32, and we would keep them for months. Now what's happening is they're saying, I want 30. We're getting through their training shift, and they're probably trying to get 40 between 2 or 3 different jobs. But if that's a pattern, what we might want to do is we have to create a mix in your employee grid. So we have to get a mix. Avatar number 1 might be persons working multiple jobs. I learned this from Eric Thomas. Anybody watch Eric Thomas, the motivational coach on YouTube? Spent a bunch of time with Eric, and Eric said in his business, he doesn't hire anybody with a mortgage. He said if they have a mortgage, they have too high financial needs based on what he's willing to pay them. So he has to hire somebody without a mortgage. That was his avatar. Our avatar might mean they want to work 3 jobs. So what percentage of our part-time employee base are we willing to have that works 3 jobs? Because we can't have 100% or it creates instability in our base. Then our second avatar might be our daytime staff who come in 40 hours a week, 35 hours a week, day in, day out, and they're just static. And then we have this third avatar, which rounds us out, which are those 5 or 10 people that are working for those 35 hours. Again, these are big concepts. We do have supporting client or guest or employee avatar worksheets we can send out, or send to Darren and send out after the call. But
I think what for that, just by you reframing that for me, it highlighted a question that I'm missing, and it's, are you currently seeking employment elsewhere?
Yeah.
And is that part of your plan? Not that that's an X against you, but it's a question that I'm not asking. I'm just going, hey, are you kind? Are you solutions focused? Are you, empathetic, whatever the fuck they may be, but I'm not asking that. So I've taken away something very valuable from that. Thank you.
And here's the other thing: most people are running one job ad. I would split test your job ad. So I would have a job ad for that 30-hour-a-week position, and I would have a job ad. The top line says, "We offer the opportunity for you to work multiple jobs." We want you to work 2 shifts a week. We will create that flexibility for ideal and amazing candidates. flexibility that you want. So right, like if you look at anything, we all have social media. Every ad you have on social media has multiple, what they call split tests, 5, 6, 8 ads running at the same time to find out what the hook is. So for my clients, I'm changing the title of the job. We're changing the opening paragraph talks about what most job ads, if I go on Indeed right now in any market in North America, talk about what the employer wants from the candidate. What I would encourage you to do, your first paragraph of your job ad, find out exactly what your different avatars want and say, we offer flexible shifts. You can actually cherry pick here. You can work at our restaurant Friday and Saturday only and have the opportunity at the best tips. Whatever is to fill the gap. So we can talk to them and in the interview to say, what is it that you're looking for? Don't be worried. We have different opportunities here. We can create consistent hours or we can create flexibility. What's better for you? Because they're the ones in scarcity right now, not the jobs. Or we don't have the leverage. The candidate has the leverage. So the more we talk to them in the job ad and what they want to need, and the more we talk to what they want to need, we want to get ahead of them before they don't show up for Friday to go work at the third job. We want to, if that's a pattern, we want to get ahead of it and say, that's okay, but you have to work. We want you to work for us Friday. We'll pay you the extra 50 cents. You work here Friday, you go work there Tuesday. How do we win that fight for talent?
I think that's great. Really good insight. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Al. And I can speak to, I know Al is developing a very good culture in his business as he's growing. Known Al for a while. So that's awesome. Thanks, Al. Angelie.
Hey, Darren, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, great. I'm fine. Oh, apparently Siri says we're fine. I didn't ask Siri.
I heard another voice there. Yep.
She's always listening. That was a little creepy.
Yeah.
Darren, you sound nothing like Siri for the record.
That's good.
No, so I always love to chime in about stuff like this. Matt, I love your points about, making sure you have the value statement or the proposition for the candidate in the first line, because the laundry list days are over. That's probably, as a recruiter, one of my biggest pet peeves back when I was in recruitment and recruiting and working with different brands, that it would kind of be like this very long 3-pager of, here's our brand value statement in terms of like how awesome our company is. And it was basically something pulled out of boilerplate. And then it was, a couple of different paragraphs, about 10 years long, about reading about all of the requirements to apply. And then after you got through all of that, it's like, okay, like they haven't even read it. They just click apply. Like, let's be honest, people that are looking for work, they're not going to read the entire job description. They don't remember the job description. It's like, you have to have something punchy and fun, and don't be afraid to allow the personality, legally, of course, for job posting statements. You have to have what it is, the hours, and what they're going to be doing basically, but don't be afraid to have personality of your brand come out too. So if you're kind of like a fun, quirky, drop the F-bombs or like that kind of environment, be like, look, we like to have fun on a Friday night. Our culture is, what, I'm going to be real with you. There's going to be times where we're going to be in the crap and it's not going to be happy, but this is how I reward my people, the top 3 ways. And I promise you, this is my dedication. We're looking for awesome people that align with this, and boom, like apply here. So it's just going to be quick, a little bit quirky, bring personality, make yourself stand out in a job posting, because now more than ever, you're right. Like, it's just sort of this cattle call. Everybody says the same thing, has the same boilerplate templates. Like, even if you do like one line, you need to stop here, or something that's like just catchy, like put your sales hat on and then reverse engineer your entire job posting process. Because the purpose of a job posting, the biggest thing that people don't remember, it's not to provide that laundry list. The number one purpose of a posting is to attract candidates. Then after you attract the candidate, then you can scare them away by how crappy I'm kidding, Joe, but about how horrible or how stressful or how awesome or whatever the adjective is, right? But do it in the recruitment phase of things and make sure that you're getting on those candidates really fast. That's the other thing, that people still are very slow sometimes to get to applicants, and that's also a problem because they feel it. They're like, well, they're so busy, they don't have time to even call me back. So yeah, no, it's really good points. And I love just be creative in your postings. And if you have challenges with that, have somebody else write your posting for you, or ask 3 of your team members or direct reports, what are the top 3 benefits you say of working here? Like, even ask for feedback, because our team says, our team says number one reason to work here is because of the French fries are awesome and they're free flowing all night long. I don't know. Think of something and put it in there, but just be different. That's the number one thing right now.
I couldn't agree more. There's lots of things in there, but just being real in your job ads. We have some, for our teams, we have some of the craziest job ads. Like we have quotes in there and statements from me and talking about the candidate and what we promised them. And we ask candidates that we hire, why did you join our team? And they said from the start, something felt different. We have an 8-touch interview process. We move through it really quickly, but you have to see 8 different interactions so we can see how a candidate really shows up. But we're trying to be different. We're trying to stand out. A lot of us are using job boards. You look at Indeed says free postings. Their TV commercials say they have 19,000 new postings a day. How are you going to stand out? Like people aren't just looking for your restaurant. They're looking for a job. So how do you stand out? It's uniqueness, realness in your job ad, the more authentic you can be and have some fun with it. And it should echo through to your interview process. It should echo through to your onboarding process. You have to have some consistency for the kind of the word of this call, but I couldn't agree more with your term. Have some fun, be real. And that's the only way that we see the ability to stand out. And I did a workshop 2 weeks ago where we went online and took my client and their 5 core competitors, grabbed all their job ads offline and took the logos off and said, find your job ad. Do you think they could? Not a chance, right? They all read the same: fun place to work, great team, great culture, bunch of bullshit. I'm like, and this is a big brand. And from the West Coast of Canada, it's all the same stuff. So, and we've done that exercise a bunch of times. Sometimes people get really offended by it, so I don't encourage it unless people don't have a good sense of humor. But Angelina, I love your feedback, and I just love your energy around it. Like when you have positive energy around the fight for talent, you can win talent, as Dwayne said. It's out there. You just got to go get it. You got to fight for it.
Yeah, Dwayne, before I come to you, just my thoughts on that too. I like the idea of talking to the team and getting team member testimonials, and what are a great way to do stuff. Putting it into Indeed or that kind of thing. Like you say, you're not going to see it. We've all got Facebook pages and social media. Getting your team members to do live testimonials. I mean, understanding what they're going to say first, because you don't want them to go too freewheeling on you. But that stuff's going to get engagement. It's going to hit the analytics. It's going to get out there a lot faster to a lot more people than just trying to post an ad on Indeed. So
100%.
Dwayne?
I agree with you 100%, Darren. That was one of the things I was going to say. The other thing, okay, is that my son calls red ocean, blue ocean. If you made a comment, Matt, everybody's doing the same thing. Well, that's the problem. If you're a small business person, independent restaurant, you want to be in the blue ocean where there's nobody, there's no sharks, there's no nothing, and you're different, you're unique, and you're exciting, and do things besides just post it on. You got Facebook, you got LinkedIn, you got Instagram, you got all these different social platforms. Make things happen. Do some different things. Make yourself unique. Get out of the red ocean, get in the blue ocean. You have a lot more success.
Yeah, love it.
Love it.
Thanks, Dwayne. Well, listen, guys, we've only got a couple of minutes left here. So before we close off, Matt, I wanted to give you an opportunity to let people know, where can they learn more about you? Where can they connect with you? How do they get your book? All that kind of stuff.
Yep. So website is mattrolfe.com. So mattrolfe.com. You'll find out all the information about me. There's info on the book there. We have lots of downloadable assets on the website for free. So you can go there to find out more about me. We do put out a video a day on LinkedIn. We've been working on content for a couple of years now. If you want to add me to LinkedIn, we have lots of great content. Love to continue a conversation. For anybody in this call, if anybody adds me to LinkedIn and says book, please, I'll send the first 5 people who do that a free copy of the book. Just somebody on my team will reach out for your address. So we'll just ship it through Amazon. If you've got a team, let us know. We can send a couple copies on where it's going, but happy to help some people out get the book in their hands. Not that it's about the book. It's just about focusing time to bring your team together to do something different, to create new results. And those are the main platforms for the book. Go to amazon.ca or .com. You can't do it alone. You'll find the book there. We've been very grateful. We hit 4 bestsellers list, which was an absolute shock to us when we launched the book. And we've got lots of continued good press coming up on in the US. And a second book has started to get worked on with the publisher. So we'll keep that under wraps for a bit, but I never thought I couldn't write or spell in high school. Now I'm on to book 2. So you can imagine what my publisher has to deal with, but we're really excited about the second content and more around what Darren's talking about, more about community and tribe in the restaurant industry.
That's awesome. I love it. Listen, Matt, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I really had a great time talking about this, great conversations. To everybody who joined us, I appreciate your questions and your participation. Again, this is about the community, and this is how we are going to help each other continue to get through this and grow and learn. So I want to say thank you to all of you. I look forward to seeing you all again next month on our next Great Minds session. Any final thoughts before we head off, Matt?
I just think we got to, like, one thing that I wanted to celebrate, there's a couple people out there that have helped us keep our community together and win through this pandemic. They're one of those people. There's not a lot of suppliers who have stood out for me, or partners or individuals. Yourself and Matt have continued to lead from the front. I think you're a partner that we started working with, like Cisco, but just what you're doing to invest this much time. I don't know if everybody knows on the call how much work this takes. I appreciate you. I appreciate all that you do deeply. And I know,
Thank you.
Trust me, I've heard dozens of people talk about the work you're doing, and I think we should all be grateful. And you led from the front, my man. You got out there first, so thank you. You didn't wait. You led 2 years ago. The first session I remember dialing into, it felt like 2 years ago. I was sitting in a Toys R Us parking lot, pulled over and dialed into the first call. So I know exactly where I was sitting, and just appreciate you and thank you for all that you've done for our industry.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for your time. I wish you all a good evening and a safe, happy weekend. And we'll look forward to seeing you next month on our next Great Minds sessions. Matt, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Have an awesome night.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Good night.